All right. So, team leaders, if you want to come up to the front. Is that not?
Oh, you put blank screen.
Blank screen.
Hey,
It's already down.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Who's first?
Me, I think.
I'm not helping.
Found it. Hey, I got it. I'll figure it out. Found it.
Got to.
Andrew, just watch him.
Hey. That was also mine.
That's the last slide.
Hey, presenting.
Welcome.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
Okay, well, I'm in Lowry Mall, so. Oh, sorry. If you don't know me, my name is Emma. I'm a senior hospitality management major from Joplin, Missouri. Yeah, but I did Lowry Mall, so I'm one of the team leaders, so shout out to Big Little Vlogs. Woo, best team. Okay. But anyway, so I did Lowry Mall, so we're going to start. These are some really cool lists of 7 pictures that I found that I thought was pretty neat. First one was that actually Lowry Mall, the first thing was Memorial Union, actually got constructed in 1915. It was paused for World War I, which then, I think I talked about it maybe in a little bit, but they got funding to do a Memorial Stadium along with Memorial Union. So then it was finished in 1926. So a lot of people I know on tour for some reason say 1922, because that's when one of the cornerstones was laid. It actually wasn't completed until 1926, so keep that in mind. This is like in 1974, as you can kind of see, that's what like the bookstore looked like, and it was actually originally a street that went all the way through for cars to drive on, so we did kind of eventually block that off. And this was the dedication ceremony for Memorial Union in 1984, which I thought was just kind of a cool little thing. So, next. Okay, Ellis, woo! So, first of all, I thought it was kind of cool because it used to be surrounded by like a field, so that was like the then and now kind of neat looking. Where it was built in 1914 and finished in 1915, and is the largest public research library in the state of Missouri. So make sure you say public because private, that's not true. WashU is actually bigger than ours, so like 3 million books inside. Something that I really talk about a lot on tour is the Research Assistance Program, or RAP for short. If you guys don't know where it is, there's links in the PowerPoint that'll actually kind of lead you to it. It's really cool. What you can do is you can go online, actually set up an appointment with a librarian. You can put in like your research paper topic or whatever research you need to be doing. And when you meet with them, they're going to be able to give you sources, not only point you in the right direction, but give you direct like articles, books, things like that. So they're essentially going to be doing your research and then give it to you, which I think is really cool. I always talk about it on tour, kind of being with the Writing Center, and everyone gets really excited about it. Like, that's so neat. So definitely kind of something that's unique to Mizzou for sure. The last thing to talk about, librarians are awesome. They're so great. Definitely highlight the things that they'll do. They do the research assistant program as well. I always have like personal stories with that. My librarian like walked with me for 45 minutes to locate a book once. Like things like that. So make sure to talk about them that we do have librarians on staff all the time. Bookmark Cafe, Caldy's Coffee, that's pretty awesome. 2 a.m. during, open till 2 a.m., 4 a.m. during finals week. Because I know a lot of times, like, oh, it's not open 24 hours. That's a good time to plug Res Live, saying that, like, they do have study rooms, and the residential hall is going to be open 24 hours a day. And then we have, like, the rec that's going to be open early in the morning if you want to go study before your 8 a.m. exam, things like that. So definitely making sure that if someone does ask you if the library is open 24 hours, not to just be like, oh, no, it's not, but kind of putting a positive spin on it. So, yeah. Okay, Memorial Union. So these are some kind of cool pictures that I found. I was like looking out of the second floor like balcony, which is kind of cool in the 40s. And there's like actually a door behind the clock tower that you can open, which is kind of cool. And that's just a pretty picture of it, because you know. So a little bit more about it. It was built in 1923 in memoriam of all fallen veterans. World War I tower was finished in 1926, like I said earlier. The North Tower is 1930, but the South wasn't actually done until 1963. So that is the newer part of it. There's 117 names listed in the archway. That's kind of, I've seen 116 listed and 117. So I don't know if you guys know for sure, because Ryan Gavin actually put 116, which was our history presentation. Everyone else is 117. So question mark, but someone should go count. Things that you should definitely highlight while you're in there: Veteran Center, Disability Center, Study Abroad Office, Craft Studio, Comedy Wars, 9 p.m. or 9:30 p.m. Wednesdays, Memorial Union. Definitely plugging it on tour. And Starbucks. I always make some funny jokes about that. But the cool thing about like saying all of those things, you don't have to necessarily go into detail about all of this. Just saying that they're there is really going to matter to a lot of different people on tour. Like for example, okay. For example, if you mention like the Disability Center and someone that applies to is on your tour, you might not even know it. Just hearing that, they might come back and talk to you about it later. They just might keep that in their head as something. Oh, Mizzou had that. That's really cool. So just like mentioning that they're all there is pretty great. And another cool thing that I like to talk about is the Veteran Center, because it's kind of in conjunction with Memorial Union, which is really neat.
What funny jokes do you make about Starbucks?
They're just like, oh, you don't like coffee because you will, because college. I don't know.
Big one.
Okay. I don't know. I'm awkward. Okay, so Student Success Center used to be McDonald's, RIP. There's not really school.
Yeah, RIP.
So I really like McDonald's, so does Emily, so whatever. Anyway, Student Success Center, the Writing Center, the online writery is the thing that you like can submit your paper into. That's like the official name for it, but it does go through the Writing Center. The walk-ins, they will do them right there on and go over your paper and all that fun stuff. 24-hour turnaround, the online writery. So the way I always say it on tour is like, okay, you finished your paper 3 days early. That's 3 different writing tutors that could potentially look over it. And you got a research assistance program, so you're gonna get an A on your first paper. Things like that. So definitely kind of like tying those all in, especially because they're all in the same little area. Tutoring through the Learning Center, great time for personal story. I always talk about when I took econ and I had to actually go in and I got a B+ in the class because I went in for tutoring every week, which is great. Parents always like that. So definitely talk about that. Next thing, the Career Center, interview prep, cover letter, resume writing, talk about internships and jobs. Parents love it when we talk about the jobs. It's obviously why they're sending their kids to school. So I always like to really highlight on that. People get pretty excited about it, and there's links in the last slide for this section that are going to take you to all those things so you can look up specific programs that they offer as well. Undecided advising, also in there. 4th largest major on campus, haha, so cool. Okay, Lowry Hall. First of all, that's I've been asked a million times what that thing was and I never know. That's what it is. John Bro Miller Yielding Spire. That's the thing, which is cool. I looked it up. Okay, so honors college advising, smaller classes, more specific. Cooler thing that I like to say about Lowry Hall is the white campus and red campus thing. So if you look at Lowry Hall, you're going to see that it's actually split in half. Half of it's made out of white limestone, other half is red brick. And then I always say, like, look behind me. You're going to see that everything is made out of red brick, and everything behind you is made out of that white limestone. Split in half, red campus, white campus more historical, white campus all built after 1926. We now know not 1922. But yeah, so kind of cool to kind of see those two come together. But that's a little bit more about the Honors College. It was different when I came in, so I know that it's kind of like been more of a recent change. It is rolling entry, and those are the specifics of it if they want to know the logistics. So yeah. Oh, that's it.
All right, cool. Thank you, Emma. Does anyone have any questions for Emma regarding anything she talked about? No questions? Okay, cool.
Cool.
Quadrangle. I think this is Casey.
I already did. Okay.
Yeah, don't touch that.
Oh, Tucker, can you sign into your computer? Where did you go?
Do they have the PowerPoint?
Okay, so we're going to do the quadrangle, and I should back up. I'll introduce myself. My name's Casey. I'm a senior from Minnesota. I'm studying sociology and art history. We're going to do the quadrangle in the cardinal directions and kind of break it down. It's one of my favorite parts of the tour because it is so historical. These are where the first buildings were built and the first classes were taught, so that's pretty cool. So on the east side, this is the side that you usually enter through, especially with our route coming from Lowry Mall. This is the side you would enter through with the residence on the quadrangle, the chancellor's residence. Swallow Hall is this building right here, the one that looks like half of a building right now. It typically houses the anthropology department and the Museum of Anthropology, but again, that's moved this year. I actually looked up online the original date that it was supposed to be completed, which was summer 2015, and if you've seen the current state of the building, I'm guessing not. So maybe not summer 2015. Then the residence on the quadrangle, this is where the chancellor lives. Typically, it is the oldest building on campus, not the oldest academic building, just the oldest period. So nothing else on campus is older than this building. There's been a lot of famous people there, and there are some cool stories that go along with it. Like some people say there's a rumor that Eleanor Roosevelt flooded the upstairs bathtub and then she wasn't invited back. That's not really substantiated fact, but if you want to throw it out there as a campus myth, by all means do it. And then Picard Hall is the one that's next to the chancellor's residence. So you walk, when you're walking down the sidewalk, here's the chancellor's residence, here's Picard Hall. That houses the Museum of Art and Archaeology. That's also moved out this year to Mizzou North, but it will be moving back next year. And that's the art history department. Also, this picture on the bottom is when it was damaged in a tornado back in the day. Yay, tornadoes. Okay, the north side of the quadrangle, let me find my notes on this part. The north side of the quadrangle houses mostly the journalism school, so it was actually built in several different chunks. Yes. Oh, you were just like this. What is that? Is this the thing that they do?
The journalism J? Are you not familiar?
I'm not familiar with this. You guys are weird.
Please never do that.
Never do that ever. This is the sociology S. All right, well, anyway, journalism makes up that back corner of the quad, and all of the buildings were kind of built at different times, as you can see, 1892 through 1976, so they've been expanding for a really long time. There's that archway in the middle, and there's a lot of traditions with that. So you can see the lions being dedicated. They were donated by the government of China, and they actually each weigh 5,000 pounds, so don't try to move them, it won't work. Fun fact, there used to be a lake at the site of the current journalism school. It was called St. Mary's Lake. And then actually after Academic Hall burnt down, they used part of the rubble of the building to fill in the lake. So that's pretty cool. And then the main entrance, that circle drive right there in front of Geological Sciences. I've never mentioned this on tour ever, but fun fact, it symbolizes the idea of town and gown. So our entrance to our university runs straight up to the courthouse for the City of Columbia, and town being the City of Columbia, gown being the pomp and circumstance and the gowns that professors wear.
Oh, also building on that, I think it was a gift from the United States government because during the Civil War, the Union armies and the Confederate armies wrecked Academic Hall so much that this was, like, that stupid little arch thing was like their gift for all of them.
Sorry we plundered your town. Here's an archway. And then geology. That building was built in 1963. They have rocks. I didn't really find anything else that was interesting about that. We've never talked about it on tour ever. All right, the west side of the quadrangle includes Switzler Hall, which is the oldest academic building. So always make that academic distinction because, as we just said, Chancellor's Residence is the oldest. It was built in 1871. It houses a bell tower that only rings 3 times a year. Tap Day was U39. Yeah?
Actually, it's 4 times a year now.
Oh, really? What's the fourth one?
Yeah. So starting this year on Veterans Day, taps like cascades around campus and it rings certain
Cool.
That is very cool. Did everyone hear
That's
that?
really
Do you want to stand up and say that again?
I helped start it. So that's
No, yeah, stand up and say it again. I want to hear it again.
So so on Veterans Day, there's like always service at Memorial Union. They play taps, and starting this year, the trumpeters lined up like throughout campus. So when they played taps, then the next trumpeter started playing, and it was like a cascading taps through campus. And while that was happening, the bell at Switzerland rings now. So
That is
looking out for that next year.
That is very cool.
Yeah. All right, so 4 times a year. And then the last time is MU Remembers. And MU Remembers is once a year, but it kind of honors all of the students and members of the Mizzou family that have passed away during that year. So important to note, it doesn't ring. Sometimes tour guides used to say it rings every time there's a death in the Mizzou family, which is true, but it won't ring like right after someone dies. It'll ring during the ceremony 1 time a year at MU Remembers. And then also fun facts about Switzler. Apparently there's this old silo, like a big empty cylindrical space in the middle of the building that runs from the basement to the top floor, and no one knows why it was built or what it was used for. It's just there. So, yeah. And then Laffery, you guys might know that's the engineering school. It is pronounced Laffery. I didn't know that until this year, I'm ashamed to say. It was built in 1892 originally, but they've had a ton of expansion since as they added more programming and classes for engineers. There actually was a fire in Laffery too, so we've had a lot of fires on this campus I've learned more and more about recently. The Shamrock tradition is always fun to point out, so if you've never seen it, it is in between Switzler and Laffery, and basically it's just a shamrock on the ground. Rumor has it, if you walk over it, you're destined to marry an engineer. Important thing to note, never say like, make your girlfriend or your boyfriend walk over it or anything like that. Always use generic terms like significant other. I always say special someone, but then you're not making any assumptions about someone's sexual orientation or even if they're interested in dating humans. Maybe they're not. I don't know. So don't make any assumptions, just say special someone. I also always like to talk about hashtag Lost in Laffery, which is a new thing they started this year on Twitter, because we always like to make jokes about how Laffery is so confusing that only engineers can navigate it, or that it's one of the requirements to graduate is that you have to navigate the building by the time you leave as a senior. But now you can talk about hashtag Lost in Laffery. Basically, you tweet that out while you're in the building and you're lost, and then someone will come find you and take you where you need to go. So talk about that now. And then the last big tradition with engineering is E-Week. They do a ton of things with this. Actually, those two in the back should be talking more about this than I should because they're engineers. But they light the dome green. They do a ton of fun events. They give you free hot dogs on the quad, which is my favorite part. Yeah, Brendan's gonna be E-Week King. Vote for him. Okay, you can walk through Laffrey and vote without being an engineer. I'm gonna do it. You should too. Vote for
I did
Brendan.
it like 40 times.
Yeah, Emily did it 40 times last year, so go vote. Well, you clearly didn't dedicate yourself.
The other thing when you're talking about Laffrey, make sure you don't put too much emphasis on how confusing it is because we're trying to recruit STEM majors, not scare them away. And then also it's undergoing a $35 million renovation.
And it'll be done by May 2016.
Maybe.
Maybe, depending on how the other projections. You've seen Swallow Hall. All right. Okay, then another tradition on the quadrangle is Thomas Jefferson. So this is kind of moving back to the Chancellor's residence, but the original tombstone of Thomas Jefferson was given to the University of Missouri, and there's several reasons for that. We are the first public university west of the Mississippi River in the Louisiana Purchase, which he was responsible for. So that's one component, but the other component is that we are modeled off of the University of Virginia, which he founded. And the University of Virginia, actually, I think it's on the next slide, looks like that. So this was our original academic hall on the right. This is the University of Virginia on the left, so you can see how they kind of mirror each other. But because of that, they gave us his original tombstone when the family was ready to move it. He did write this script himself. It does not include anything about him being the President of the United States. They say he wanted to be recognized more for the things he did than the titles he had. And so for that reason, you don't see anything about him being president. So it's kind of a fun thing to talk about while you're on tour. It shows that we have a lot of history dating really far back, even further than when the university was founded, which is always fun. Also, this slab was repaired for free by the Smithsonian. Who knew? We do now. Now you do. All right, the Jesse Hall, which is now not operating, but it will be next year, and you guys will have so much fun when your office moves back in it. I miss Jesse Hall a lot.
If we move back in.
If you move back in, you'll have a lot of fun. Anyway, Academic Hall originally burned down January 9th, 1892. This is a picture of it after it burned down, obviously.
1982.
What did I say? 1982. Oh, I have number dyslexia. The numbers like switch in my head, so.
But
Don't
it
do
did
that on
burn
tour.
down. But it did burn down in 1880.
No, I said 19. Oh wait, I switched it. No, okay, wait.
Yeah.
I'm
We'll
right.
correct that. It's
I switched around
1880.
numbers. Sorry about
1892.
that. It's 1892. Anyway, so Academic Hall burned down. There's actually, in the links page for this, there's a really cool story that walks you through the whole night of the fire. So definitely check that out because it'll give you like an actual story behind it. Yeah.
It was built and when and burned. It burned in 92.
Here we go.
Okay, sorry, this is really confusing. Academic Hall burned down in 1892. Jesse Hall was built in 1892.
1895.
1895.
1895, 3 years later it's built.
Oh, I'm so confused.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, constructed in 1895. So, Academic Hall burned down. Check out the story in the links page because it gives you like a nice narrative of what actually happened that night. Then they built Jesse Hall, which is the one that you see today. The dome is taller than the building itself. That's always a fun fact to throw out on tour. Also, the dome only lights up 2 different colors other than white. And one of those is for E-Week, which is green. It'll be coming up soon. And then the other one is gold for homecoming. Other than that, it's a white light year-round. The namesake of the building is Richard Jesse, who was the president of the university at the time of the fire. He actually was living in the chancellor's residence when Academic Hall burned down, and his family was watching from a second-floor window. He was sitting in his library reading a book, and then someone yelled the university was on fire. So that would be kind of fun to experience, maybe not. Also, this typically houses last year Chancellor's Office, Registrar, Financial Aid, Admissions, Visitor Relations, that's us, Graduate Studies, and KBIA, which is a radio station. Some of that stuff may change next year, so you guys will get information on that then. But I always like to point it out as a place that's easy to find on campus because of the white dome. You can see it from everywhere. And when there are all of those offices back in there, that's kind of a main point that you would ever need to go for like any paperwork, things like that. And then Jesse Auditorium is always fun to talk about in relation to campus events, talk about performances, musical artists, comedians, speakers. This is a really great time to add in personal stories about your favorite speaker or your favorite band that you've gone to see. And then always emphasize that you would never have any classes in there. Because if you throw out the number 1,700 and say that's the capacity, then people are going to be like, wow, I'm going to have a really large class in there. So specify that it won't be in there. And then another fun fact, Amelia Earhart spoke there in 1936. Super cool. Those are all the links for the quad. So check out the Academic Hall Fire because it's really cool. Also, this one at the bottom is the best website ever. You go on, you look at the list of every building on campus, you click on that building, and it'll tell you all the news stories that have ever happened in relation to that building, which is how I learned about a monkey that escaped from McAllister Annex, and why the fence is around Sanborn Field. If you want to know why the fence is there, check it out on Emmy Brick and Mortar. Cool. It'll save your life. It will
Any,
save your life. It'll save
anyone
your
have
life.
any questions for Casey? No? All right. Okay, so we're going to move on to academics, and Sonia's doing that.
All right, guys, so we're going to talk a little bit about academics real quick. One of the things that you're going to get asked every now and again is how many schools and colleges we have. We have 19. So that includes everything from engineering to Kaffner to nursing to College of Veterinary Medicine. So make sure to include those professional degree programs as well. And we're just, sorry, I ran here from animal sciences. We're good.
Take a breather. Take a breather. You're good.
Anyway, our faculty to student ratio is approximately 1 to 20. That's going to be a little bit fluctuating. This is the current number I pulled off the admissions website. Try to make that personalized as possible. So maybe talk about, one I always use is our faculty to student ratio is 1 to 20. That's better than my hometown where I graduated with 86 kids in my class. I had in my college algebra class, there was 26 of us to one teacher. So really pointing that out, talking about maybe some of those classes really aren't going to be that much different than high school. That's really nice because that helps them really link the two things together. The other thing is each professor is responsible for having office hours. So really focus on that. We don't operate off the sink or swim method. That we're not going to just throw them to the sharks and let them try to come out on their own. That our professors do have those office hours. Tell your personal stories about office hours. How many of you have been to them before? Yeah, most of us have, right?
Smart
So and that's another thing I like to do when I first became a tour guide, is if you haven't done something that you could use a personal story about, go do it. So for example, I hadn't ever gone to a speaker or a show before becoming a tour guide, but I'm like, I need a good personal story for that part of my tour. So I went for and watched a speaker. So do those types of things if you haven't done them yet. Office hours is a really easy one to knock off the list. Is there another slide? So now here kind of comes down to the really how to break it down for them. Really emphasize that most of our large lecture formats are going to be intros or ologies or a science of some sort. Tie in those personal examples. So I always talk about my History 1200 class that I had in Allen Auditorium. Works really well because that's the classroom we show them. And then I say, but at that same time, my animal science class that I had that semester, there's 4 of us in that section. Really emphasize some of the diversity in classes, different things like that as far as sizes go. You're going to see some people that are really going to freak out about class size. Calm their fears, but also emphasize, if you want to be a chameleon, that's okay too. Kind of really just bring out the positives. By the time you get to your specific major classes, there'll be 20 to 40. Then the other thing is the Student Success Center. So the Student Success Center, we always talk about being one of the least underutilized resources. So there's 3 main parts to the Student Success Center. First part being academic success. That's where you can get that free large group tutoring. How many of you have used that? Awesome. So tell them about that. I always use Chemistry 1320 as my example. Tell them about that part. Then also go ahead and tie that into Writing Success Center. How many of you have used that? Awesome. Or work for them? Anyone work for them? Yeah, there you go. So there's lots of things you can kind of start working on as far as time as it. Use your own stories. Maybe tell the story of your friend. Make sure to use your friend's names so it doesn't sound like you're making it up. Okay? That's a big one that'll get people. There's like, yeah, we've all got a friend who knew what you're supposed to do. No, say their name, make that really personal. This is a really good way to make it personal. And the more you can tie it in, the more they can see themselves doing those actual things. Here are your links for that. Admissions has kind of a lot of that general overview type stuff. Don't be afraid to come back and check that out every year or so. That faculty to student ratio will probably be just a little bit different next year at this time, and you want to keep those numbers up to date because that's a really easy one they can fact check you on. The other one is about the Learning Center, and you can go there and find out all the nitty-gritties about the Learning Center and the Student Success Center. if you haven't used those resources or aren't familiar with them.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Sonia? No? Okay. All right, Student Center.
Okay, hello, I'm Lindsay. So, yes, we're doing the Student Center. Can I use whatever laptop this is using? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so on my slides, just so you guys know, there's a lot that I have here about the Student Center, but I think the cool thing about the Student Center on tour is that there's so much in it that you can kind of very easily cater to the students or transfer students or prospective people, whomever that you have on your tour, kind of along the way. And then also, being that there is so much information that I have on here, obviously, if you're saying all of this, that's kind of a problem. So being able to like say it concisely, but then still kind of hitting the nail on the head of the important things is really important. So when you're walking in, usually with our tour route, you're going to be walking in that north entrance kind of by the shack. So once you kind of gather, I think an important thing to note, just like the way that you're moving, is that if you're doing it on like a really big visit day, or if like one of the tour guides that you're on the same tour with is kind of following you and you're kind of in sync, I think it's important to judge whether you need to stop there or if you want to keep moving or whatever, just like so you guys are conscientious about that. So when you walk in, I always like to talk about the shack, and I think almost everyone loves to talk about the shack because it's something that gets people excited about our traditions and how important they are on our campus. So when the Student Center was being renovated in 2011, the alumni were surveyed as to like something really important that they had in their Mizzou experiences that they would like to see come back into the new Student Center, and they almost unanimously talked about the shack. When I start kind of that intro about like how the alumni wanted to see it, I always kind of refer them back to where they parked, because they parked in Turner Avenue Garage usually for admissions visits, just so that they can kind of get their bearings more also, and that they can understand where they are on campus too. But like talk about how right across from Turner, where we are in, you know, visitor relations, where RAC is, that was where the original shack was. So you can kind of point that out to them. But then, so as far as the shack, we talk about the tradition of how the tradition at the time before it burned down was to carve your name into like the walls and the tables, like your significant other or your Greek letters or something funny. Just kind of, that was the tradition, and it was essentially a bar and a restaurant. But now that it's renovated into the Student Center, it's not entirely made of the original wood. They only have like 1 or 2 booths and a little bit of the paneling that is preserved and embalmed. But then they do have new wood that you can kind of keep the tradition going, and then you can rent the whittling tools from the Information Center and the Student Center. So I think that's pretty cool, again, to keep the tradition going like that. But then otherwise in the shack, it burnt down, I'm pretty sure the date's 1988.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's 1988, yeah. It really spooky story, you guys. It burnt down on Halloween night in 1988. Kind of crazy, right? Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool to say. And then a kind of like weird plug joke is like, yeah, we haven't had any more fires on campus. And then they laugh. I don't know. You guys didn't, so I must not be funny. So yeah, you can say that. And then otherwise, like you going on what it's used for now. The restaurant inside is called Mort's. It's named after alumni Mort Walker, who's the original cartoonist. Thank you. Of the Beetle Bailey cartoon series, and then he was a really big fan of the shack when he was a student. He likes to claim that Beetle Bailey was born in the shack. So then you can kind of talk about that. And then, of course, how Mort's, the food place in the shack, has really good burgers and fries and chicken tenders and stuff. But then otherwise, there's a really big multi-purpose space that is used for like watch parties when Mizzou's away, really big sporting events like the World Cup or the World Series or anything like that. And then there's pool tables, a jukebox, a lot of games, a ping pong table. And then all that equipment that is used in the shack, you can rent or use, I guess is a better term, from the union's ambassadors in the center of the Student Center. So then some people go into the shack, some people don't. I guess it just kind of depends on what your tour route wants to be. But then when you get into the center of the Student Center, talk about the Information Center and how all the things that you talked about in the shack are taken from there. And then also that it's staffed by the union's ambassadors. And then other things aside from like the fun stuff that you can check out. You can check out like dry erase markers for the group study rooms of the Student Center. If you have a meeting, you can rent like the keyboard and mouse for the projector. You can rent laptops from IT or the ambassadors. And then the bike share contracts, you can have a bike for the day if you would like to, and then also talk about how these are a part of their student fees. It's not something that they're being charged for like anytime that they swipe their ID. It's all covered in their tuition. And then moving on, kind of, I'm following like my own tour route, but so then when I get kind of towards walking towards the Mizzou store, if I don't talk about them outside, I'll talk about the lower level resources. And this is kind of a big thing that you guys should try to mention as much as possible, because MSA kind of passed a resolution where they almost wanted to require us to walk through the basement. But so rather than doing that, Leanne really wants us to talk about them as much as possible. And because they are really awesome resources and they should be known about. So we have the LGBTQ Resource Center, the Women's Center, New Student Programs, which is where Summer Welcome and the Involvement Ambassadors are based out of, the RSVP Center, the Multicultural Center, Wellness Resource Center, and then the Man Eater, which is the student-run newspaper, and then KCOU and MUTV, which are other cool things for like radio enthusiasts or journalism majors, things like that. The J, yes. So any questions about that slide? Cool. Okay, I have to move to, I don't know how to do this. Okay, so then moving on, so then you're getting to the east end of the building, and then this is a good place to talk about the CSI, and then the CSI stands for the Center of Student Involvement. If you haven't been up in the CSI, like to hang out or check out an organization, I really recommend doing it because it's a really nice place to hang out. I guess there's a lot of comfy chairs, I don't know. But so at Mizzou, we have over 700 organizations to get involved in. So that's so imploring to the incoming students that there's so many places to find your niche, and there's just so many things to do on campus. Something that I always say is that kind of like I was really nervous about coming to Mizzou because I'm coming from so far away, but getting involved in things and having stuff to do made me like not feel pressured to go home, or like it didn't give me as much anxiety about being so far away. So I think that that's something that you can identify with like out-of-state students with, or even some students who are from 2 hours away. That might be far for them too. So I think that that's a good thing to talk about when you're talking about involvement. But then the main offices upstairs are org, student government, and then Greek life. So those are the main like divisions, but then a lot of campus activities and organizations span under that branch of org. So you can find a lot of stuff and a lot of answers to your questions there. But then other things in the Student Center on the west end of the building, that's where we have the US Bank, the ATMs, the DigiPrint Center, the pharmacy, a Mizzou Market. So that's good to talk about how the Student Center is kind of like our hub on of like, I guess, our student population. You can do a lot of stuff in the Student Center that doesn't require a car, which I think is something big, because then you can say like, oh, I didn't have a car as a freshman, or like I still don't have a car now. And it is nice not to have to go off campus to like Walmart or the mall or something like, because you can probably get it from the Student Center, which is kind of nice. But then otherwise on the west end, we also have the MSA GPC box office. So after you highlighted, like Casey talked about in Jesse Auditorium, like the concerts and speakers and even the stuff that happens downtown, it's good to note that you can get those tickets to those events and such in the Student Center again. So it's not something that you have to like go to the ends of the earth to find these fun things to do. It's all in the Student Center. And then the top floor of the West End is where we have those group study rooms that you can reserve with your friends. And again, all under student fees, so those are free. And then lastly, we have the Mizzou store. So just don't call it the bookstore. If you go through the Mizzou store and like you're giving your tour and you're like really jamming and you're having so much fun, and then you say the bookstore, there's like a 98% chance that from someone who works there is gonna like sass at you, and you don't want to do that because that's really awkward. So I would say just the Mizzou store, the Mizzou store, the Mizzou store. And then so on the main level, as you all know, they sell the clothing and accessories, gifts, books, kind of like a Barnes & Noble-ish thing. And then the books and supplies, like university textbooks, and then Tiger Tech are in the basement. So I think that that's a good opportunity to talk about if you want to go into detail, like if you have time, if they like seem interested, I guess. Talk about early bird textbooks, how you can reserve all of your books, new or like your required and optional, beforehand, and then you can just kind of walk in. Has everyone done early bird? I would hope. Okay, cool. Do it. It's awesome. And then let your major be your guide. That's a really big thing, and I think that this is a really like something that everyone should do, but I don't think that a lot of people do it. But so basically what you do is they either have a pamphlet in the Mizzou store or it's on the Mizzou store website. And basically what it is you select your academic unit and then your intended major, and then it will tell you your required / recommended technology. I know when I did it, they were just kind of like, yeah, you can get whatever you want. But then I know like engineers and journalism students, they might have specific software / programs that they need. So it's kind of something that you really want to know before you get into your emphasis area so that you're not spending all that money for nothing. And then also talk about the textbook variety and how we have a comparison. And that you really kind of do get your bang for your buck with the Mizzou store. All your books are like there, obviously, because it is the Mizzou store, but then they have a lot of options as well, like the new, used, rental, and all that stuff. Yes.
Students get free Microsoft Office for 4 years.
Yes, that was a new thing that just started this year. It's really, really cool.
So we can mention that.
Yes,
John,
absolutely mention that.
How do you mention it on yours? Because you do it really well.
John does a really
How do you
well.
mention the Microsoft Office that you get for free as a student?
Well, I told about how I was an idiot and broke my computer and I didn't have it. Just like, and I just, it's online, you don't even have to go into the store to get it. It's just through your email. So I just Google, like, how do I?
Yeah, you can do everything on the IT website.
Online. Yeah, if you go to like settings, what you can get. So yeah, I just super honest with them that I'm stupid, lost everything on my computer, and that the university saved me. But I also include that if you buy your laptop in the university, they'll add an extra year of warranty to it. So that's 4 years of warranty. So you get your laptop fixed for free the entire 4 years you're here, which I did revert back to, hey, I broke my computer and they couldn't help me. So be smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super awesome. I really encourage you to do that because Microsoft Office is pretty expensive. That's 4 years.
Something I would say about Tiger Tech is just be like 100% sure what you're saying is true. And if you don't know that much about Tiger Tech, I would really just point out let your major be your guide and then move on because Tiger Tech has been a huge struggle for me and I think a lot of people as we've gone through this thing because everything changes with them so often. So I can talk to Puna about maybe like getting something from them, but
Yeah, we're getting a one-liner sheet, so.
talk about it outside.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really go in the Mizzou store that much. That's only because I kind of think that everyone goes to the Mizzou store at least once towards the end of their visit. I mean, honestly, you can't assume that, but I mean, that's just kind of the norm for a lot of people. Also, if you're feeling pressed for time, I mean, I don't want to say like don't go in the Mizzou store because you absolutely should. It's a really cool thing to show off. But like if you're pressed for time, it's something that you can really do justice. And especially like Tucker said, if you're not feeling comfortable with it, it's definitely not a good place to like go in and test it. Because like I said, I've been stopped before and it's really awkward. Because then I'm just kind of like, okay, like it's really weird. Yes. So, and then the last thing, any more questions on that? Okay. The last thing I was going to say was the customer service desk outside of the Mizzou store is really dope in case you haven't utilized anything about it. The postal service is there, so if you need to mail a package, mail anything, you can do that there. If you need stamps, you never know, like, when you need a stamp, right?
So you're just really into the mail aspect.
I'm really into the mail aspect because, like, when I was a freshman, I had no idea where I was going to get stamps. I didn't have a car, so in the student center, so great. And then also that's where you return your stuff from the Mizzou store, your books, your clothes, whatever. And then also Tiger Cleaners and Laundry Service is pretty cool. Has anyone ever used that actually? Of course you have. Oh my God, this sucks. Anyways, but yeah, so that's pretty cool. They'll do your laundry, they'll do your dry cleaning. I think that's great. But a big thing when you're talking about stuff like that, if you talk about student charge, because student charge / easy charge comes up a lot in the student center because you're talking about like campus dining and Pomodoros and all this stuff because easy charge applies there, and then like student charge happens in the Mizzou store. Don't assume that like their parents or the people that are on their tour are paying for whatever they're doing because you have no idea what their financial situation is. And let's say that the guardian on their tour is not their actual parent. That's really awkward if you're saying like, oh, yep, you're gonna pay for that. No. So just be conscientious of that. I think that's a really important thing.
Very important.
Yes. Links for the Student Center. So I have the Union's website, unions.missouri.edu. That's where you like can reserve those group study rooms. You can figure out what's going on in the building, all that kind of stuff, the hours. Get involved.missouri.edu and then stuff to do.missouri.edu. I added those because those kind of pertain to like the CSI and stuff that goes on with getting involved and all that stuff. And then the MizzouStore.com. Pretty self-explanatory. Thanks. Peace. Oh, you have a question?
What's the 20% off is Friday before game day? Is that right?
It's 25% off, yeah, and it's Fridays. It's every Friday before a Mizzou home game for football, and then it's like select Fridays in the winter because basketball games happen more frequently. So, yeah. Okay, you guys are great. Cool.
All right. All right.
You like that? All right. I was really reminiscing on spring and summer, so I had to put a bunch of like summary pictures up. So for the next 3 slides, you're going to see that. But Rec Center, it was built in 2005, the year after Sports Illustrated did a survey of the top student recreation centers in the nation. We were rated number 1, and then they haven't done that survey again since then, so we still get to claim that we're number 1 in the nation. First of all, backtracking a little bit, when you're walking from the student center to the rec, if you're walking in front of the student center or Rollins there, it's a great place to talk about transportation or to talk about the lower level of the student center, because if you're walking close enough to the building, they can see downstairs, so it's kind of cool. And then when you cross the street, I always like to talk about the business school there, because we get so many people who are interested in business, but our tour route doesn't really pass by it. So that's a great place to be like, oh, and over on your right, this is Cornell. And then the math science building is also right there. And a couple of fun facts about that is when you include the basement, the building's actually a perfect square. And then everything within, or a perfect cube. And then everything within the building is a perfect square. So the hallways, the staircases are even shaped out to be a perfect square. So it's a real weird building, but that's the reason they put the math department there. The math science.
If you're really curious about the math science building, find Cora and she'll give you like a 10-minute spiel on it. So
she really likes it. When you're walking up to the rec center on the west side there, it's a great place to talk about Stankowski Field. And also, if you have any nursing or pre-med majors on your tour, talk about the nursing school right there, or the med school, which is right behind you. So Stankowski Field is open pretty much any time that you're awake. So it's open 5:30 in the morning until 1:30 the next morning. So anytime that people are awake, the lights are on and the field is open. Unless it's snowing, in which case people can't go out there. The track right around Stankowski Field was just replaced last summer, and it is a 1/3 of a mile track, so only 3 laps to a mile instead of 4 laps. And then the field there's 3 fields there, and they're technically called multi-purpose fields. So don't call them football fields or don't call them soccer fields. It is a multi-purpose field for all the different sports and things. And then here's just the general hours for the spring session. I like to say, because most of my tours are Monday through Thursday, I like to say that in general, during weekdays, the student rec complex is open from 5:30 in the morning until 11 p.m. And then I say it changes a little bit on the weekends, but those are the general weekday hours. That way you don't have to give them the entire breakdown of all the hours. All right, here's all the amazing things that we have in the student rec complex. The 2 pictures, the top picture is, because I like pictures a lot, so the top picture is what do they call that
cycling.
now? Well, Tiger X, well, yeah, it's part of Tiger X, but whatever they call that room.
It's cycling.
It's down on Tiger's Lair, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Oh, the lesser known Tiger's Lair.
What?
Isn't it like the football cheering section? Tiger's Lair?
Tiger Lair. Tiger's Lair is the football cheering section.
Less possessed.
Exactly. But a couple of the new things that you guys might not be as aware of. Clark's Boxing Gym is what used to be just the kind of the room with the 1 punching bag and the 1 speed bag. Now it's called Clark's Boxing Gym. It's named after the first athletic director. And then you can't just walk in there whenever you want like you used to be able to. Now you can only go in there if you're taking classes. But they moved the old punching bag and speed bag over to the multi-purpose courts behind the racquetball courts. So people can still get their boxing in without signing up for the class. Stalkup's Garage is our version of CrossFit. CrossFit's actually technically copyrighted, so we're not supposed to call it CrossFit. We're supposed to hint at the fact that it's CrossFit.
Cross-training.
Cross-training.
Functional fitness is what they called it.
Cultural fitness?
Functional fitness.
Oh, I was like, well, why would it be cultural fitness? So that's another new one. The fitness showcase is right in the middle of the jungle gym. That's all new and trial equipment by
3. It's not Hammer Strength. Hammer Strength is weight equipment. It's 3 different cardio companies. It's like Osteo, some.
It's the ones that are on the other side, but we get to try their equipment before anyone else in the world. So that is our little trial section, and it overlooks the anaerobic side of the jungle gym. Everything else is pretty standard, and you've all probably used it. Note there are 4 racquetball courts. When you walk in, you only see 3 of them. The other one is down by the squash court over right next to Tiger Lair and the little checkout station. So make sure you say 4 racquetball courts and 1 squash court. And then there's 10 multi-sport courts. They look like basketball courts, but they can be changed into badminton or volleyball courts, or now Mizzou fencing takes over them all the time. So now they're multi-sport courts. Yeah.
What's included in your tuition? What do you have to pay for?
Good question. What's included in your tuition is, so when you walk in on the west side, that entire area, so basketball, the track, the little stretching area upstairs, racquetball. As you continue through the jungle gym, the jungle annex, which is what used to be known as the quiet fitness room, it's the lightweight free weight center, and downstairs in the pump room, that's all included. The checkout station, you can check out everything free of charge down there. So basketballs, volleyballs for outside, towels, all that's included in your tuition. And then all the pools.
But what's not is.
So essentially what's not is the things on Downtown Brewer, the Tiger X passes and classes, and then the rock climbing wall.
Also intramural sports.
Yes, intramural and club sports. And note the difference. Intramural sports are kind of more our recreational, fun, join a team, get a co-ed or single gender team together, and they're kind of the fun ones. Club sports are the traveling ones that compete with other schools across the nation.
And you guys will get a list of all this, I promise.
A couple of little cheesy jokes that we always use to keep people entertained. Oh, also, this is the part where everyone's jaw just drops. So they walk around the entire rec center like, and then all the alumni say they wish they came to Mizzou now, and all the parents are like, can I come back to college? they all say it. Every time.
No.
Yeah, you get both. Also, point out the study lounge. Every building on campus is required to have some sort of study lounge now. So the rec study lounge, we walk right through it. It's right before the little paper cutout of Chester Brewer. Hopefully one day there'll be a statue, but right now we still have a paper cutout. So I always talk about homecoming there, and then I talk about the study and computer lounge. The corny jokes when you're at the pump room, that's a great place to point out that the student rec center is just for the normal students. The student athletes have their own training complex off campus or on the south side of campus. So you won't have to not be able to work out because the football team took over or anything like that. We can work out in all these rooms anytime the rec center is open. And then the pump room, I'm always like, and this is where I hang out all the time. And then as I walk back through the crowd, I'll be like, all right, I've never actually been down there, but I hear it's really cool. And then I always say something about down in the pump room, they don't speak English, they actually speak in grunt, because you open the door and all you hear is like, oh, yeah, all right. And I say that as I'm walking backwards up to the jungle annex.
But girls use it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
Oh,
with the pump room that we've had the rec complex tell us not to do, as you shouldn't do it anyway, is don't call like the pump room, don't say that's where the meatheads go. Not okay. So just refer to it as I think Anurag, he did it really great. He goes, if you really want a serious like weightlifting workout, that's a great place to go. Or you can just dance because the music is super loud, and then he like does this dance thing. You could do that if you want. I thought it was great. But stay away from like the meathead, like, making it very like gender specific, aka referring it to a place where men go to work out.
I always divide it and say the pump room is the heavy free weight center because the free weights range from 5 to 150 pounds downstairs, and then the upstairs is the lighter free. What?
200 pounds.
They've brought up to 200 now? Holy crap, that's ridiculous.
So my girls would.
And then the upstairs is up to 50 pounds. So it's the lighter weight free weight center. Let's see. Other things to do, the Tiger X Pass is $53 a semester.
56, they changed it.
They didn't update their website if they just changed it. Call them and tell them to update their website.
Yeah, the rec is another place kind of like the Mizzou store where it's definitely be cautious about what you're saying. Because they have people who are moving continuously through the rec, because they're like working, you know?
Let's call them out on that. Just get back at them a little bit.
But I mean, this is a big thing, so you want to be.
When in doubt, don't use numbers when it comes to prices.
Say you don't have to have a Tiger X pass to take a Tiger X class. The first week of every semester is free week, so that's a great time to try the classes out. And then also, if you just want to take one class, it's $9, so you don't have to buy the entire pass. And then the boxing gym, the new part, is $39 a semester. It's kind of like the special locker rooms where there's a wait list for it right now. So yeah, it's like a specialty club. But they are planning on opening up more spots and more classes for that. Mizzou wheelchair basketball, this is something that Mizzou's really proud of now. Our coach coaches the United States wheelchair basketball team. So we hold a lot of the big tournaments here on Mizzou's campus. At the Mizzou Aquatic Institute, which is the little classroom down in the Mizzou Aquatic Center, they have a lot of different classes. So they have everything from lifeguard and CPR certification to becoming a water instructor to just taking swim lessons. You can do all of that down in that little side room there. Yeah?
Well, I just found out that Layla Ali used the boxing room a few weeks ago when she was visiting to go to the dining hall, so it's a cool little topic.
That's real cool.
Oh, and she went dancing with the stars.
Plus side. And then, again, there's a great place to talk about rec sports and club sports. Especially if there's a big lineup, try not to get too stacked up in the rec center, which it can happen really easily because parents like to walk really slow in there to take everything in. So if you're right on another group's heels, stay outside for a few minutes, wait out there, talk about Stankowski a little more. That's a great place to mention Greek life or campus safety because you're standing right next to a green light.
Blue lights.
Blue light.
Blue lights.
I say blue light on tour. You're right next to the little blue light tower. So just make sure you're not all walking in right after each other because it also gets really congested right there. Also know how many people are in your group because they ask you at that little front desk. And then make sure you're wearing your name tag now at all times. You should be anyway. But that's how they type us into the little computer system to make sure they know a tour is coming through.
Also, your student ID. If you're going to West End.
Oh yeah, have your student ID if you're going in the West End.
And we're actually working on that. We're trying to get it so we don't have to have our student ID.
They haven't
so.
ID'd me yet this semester.
Yeah.
Just have it just in case.
Because when a lot of people are trying to go in like one after another, it gets broken because it keeps like opening, closing.
Just make sure you all have it just in case, and hopefully you won't have to use it.
Are there any questions? Oh, and when it's nice outside, go look at the Truman's Pond from the outside, because then you can actually see it better instead of people like awkwardly being pressed against the glass trying to look left and right. But when it's cold outside, feel free to keep them inside. Make corny jokes as you're walking to it, like, oh, and it just keeps going, or it just keeps getting better and better, or there's still one more thing. The parents eat that up.
All right.
My tours are like 90% about the parents. Any questions about the rec center?
Is it true that maybe getting rid of the rock climbing wall?
Last semester there was a big thing about that, but then they haven't talked about it all this semester. Sonia.
So the only thing I know about that is like nothing's set in stone, so keep talking and get it, and at least that's what.
If it's still there, still talk about it. We don't need to talk about, it might be going away because that's pointless. So don't talk about it.
And we got a critic review once that said something about the rock climbing wall being something that you see at every like state fair or something. Mention that it's not one of those rock climbing walls with the colorful hand grabs that you just fly up and down. It's modeled after a real like rock face. So it's actually really challenging to get up. They have all those little pieces of tape on it. I've actually climbed it twice, but I always say that one of those pieces of tape is mine to make it personalized. They'll be like, it's really difficult. Actually, that blue piece of tape right there, that's how high I got last time. I'm trying to beat my record. They're like, oh my God, he almost got there. So feel free to make that reference.
All right. Any questions for Brendan?
Yeah, I was going to ask what you guys say about this lap swim. Like, is it Olympic size?
It is not Olympic size. It is just short of Olympic size.
I think
it's a 50 meter.
Just say it's a competition pool.
Or a 50 meter lap pool. Michael Phelps swam there.
I don't ever say that, but you can.
Yeah, he broke world records before he went to Beijing.
All right.
The world record that he broke in Beijing was actually his world record that he set in our pool. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so we helped him along this way.
All right.
Any other questions? All right, that was fun. Thanks, guys. Who's up next?
Res Life.
So now we're going to talk about Res Life. Okay, so there's certain things that we talk about as tour guides, and there's certain things that we let the Res Life ambassadors talk about. I usually like to give them kind of a quick preview though as I'm going into the Res Life tour. So just kind of giving them a quick preview. Some of the stuff they'll hear a second time, and then the third time when they have questions about it when you come out, like you'd be like, do you have any questions? And they're still foggy on it, then you know that they at least have some basis that you've told them, and you can kind of build off that. So freshman interest group versus general learning community versus thematic learning community. You guys know a lot about Res Life because probably a lot of you lived in that. So let's make this a little bit more interactive. Who lived in a FIG? All right. Who wants to tell me what a FIG is? Go ahead.
It's pretty much just like a group where it's a group of people, it's a small group of people from your dorm, and you take a lot of the same classes as well as you participate in one class once a week, and it's focused on a specific topic. Learn about that topic, and while you're doing that, you're also learning about everything that the campus has to offer, and you typically do tasks to help achieve better acquaintance with the campus.
Okay, really great. Okay, so that was probably the long version of that, which is good because you've lived in one. Okay, so one of the things to make sure that you point out is that you all live together and you take classes together and they're centered around a common topic. So 3 really quick bullet points right there to say about that. So you live together, you take classes together, and they're centered around a central topic. If you lived in a FIG, give them an example. I would say I lived in the 21st century agriculture FIG.
Of
Surprise! All right. So that's that part. All right, what about thematic learning communities? Who lived in the thematic learning community? All right, do you want to talk about it? You got this.
I lived on a floor, it was the whole floor of the building that was dedicated to business majors. And so, like, we didn't necessarily have classes together, but, like, we had a lot of similar classes and things like that. So, like, everybody knows math people that went to class and class.
Awesome. So, you live with people who are kind of in your same major or similar theme. Good morning.
What's the basketball difference between TLCs?
So the difference, or the
Yeah, like I'm still puzzled with the difference.
So the difference between a FIG and a thematic learning community is FIGs are going to take classes together, and they'll also have that FIG class. But rather than saying you're going to take a special FIG class, blah blah blah, they're going to learn that through their materials that they get later on. That'll go into literally an entire booklet explaining those 3 things. So you're just trying to keep it brief. FIGs take classes together. Thematic learning communities might have some classes together, but they don't have to. All right, then general learning communities. Who lived in one of those? Who wants to talk about it? Awesome.
I'll do it. Yeah, you don't take classes together. It's pretty chill.
Yeah. All right. So you don't take classes together. You don't have a common theme. All right. You've got people who can have a business major, journalism major, an engineering major. Kapner. All right. So general theme. All right. However you want to go. Oh, I didn't say general theme. General anything can live together in one area. All right. So that leads us kind of into the safety of residence halls. This is a big one. Really hit on this because this is probably, has anyone watched Law and Order? Okay. Has anyone noticed that there's a common theme with Law and Order that they always like show people breaking into where they live? All right. You want to make sure to be like, that doesn't happen here because it really doesn't really, okay? So really try to hit on some of the safety features, all right? Talk about going into the residence halls. You have to have your ID for that residence hall. So there's safety there. Then talk about getting into your room. How do you get into a residence hall room in most of them with the IDs?
You swipe and put in the password.
You swipe and put in your 4-digit PIN. I always talk about how my roommate didn't have my PIN. I didn't have her PIN because there's just more for us to worry about. So that no one's really going to get into your room unless you let them in. Really focus on that. And that'll just make people feel a lot more calm and relaxed about that. Roar and roommates. Okay, who can talk about that? Quick synopsis. Go for it.
So you can choose, like the synopsis of it was, you can kind of, if you want to be with a specific person, then the likelihood is that you should be open to, or like I already talked about is like, you should be open to like getting a, like not getting a certain residence hall, going with a certain person, or you should pick to get a certain residence hall, and kind of not worry about your roommate. But the options would be you'd have a single, or you'd have a double, or you'd have a suite style.
Awesome. Okay, so with that, so you have, with Roar is our process of choosing your room, okay? So you're right there with that. So Roar is your process of choosing your room, all right? And that's what we call that whole thing. And then we go into choosing community style versus suite style. Community style, how is that different from suite style? Bathrooms, okay? And they're cleaned every day in which style? Community. And when are they cleaned? Once every 2 weeks? And how many people do you share a bathroom with in suite style? 3 others. Right, rock stars. Okay, so that's the big difference between community and suite, and that's what the things you're going to tell them. With Roar, that's our process of selecting it. Roommates, you can come in with a pre-chosen roommate. You can save the spot for them. However, if you don't know anyone coming to college and you want to find someone with similar interests, we have an online dating site for that, for roommates basically. And that is You at Mizzou, okay? Thanks guys, I don't know why I'm still doing this. Alright, so throw that out there to kind of settle those figures. Or talk about random roommates. How many of you had a random roommate? Talk about how great of an experience that was. If it wasn't great, just keep it on the down low. Okay? So, that. And then personal experience. Oh, go ahead.
They don't have U at Mizzou anymore because the company went out of business. That they use, so now they just have like an official Facebook page that's run by like people at Mizzou.
Great, thank you. Okay.
I don't know how I know that, but
I thought you were Tourette's like for a second.
No.
So, okay.
Are you like required to work on campus? I know,
Yeah, you are.
Yes. You're not anymore.
Givens, wait, guys. Givens, do you know? Are they still required to live on campus or no? No. Okay.
Okay, so here's what I tell them. You're going to get that most likely from people who live within a very close vicinity to Columbia, or who have like relatives, things like that, who are already here. I always say you're not required, because you're not, but it is strongly encouraged. And then I usually follow that up with, because I lived in the residence hall, I automatically had a group of people to start with, and that made me feel a lot more comfortable. So.
Do we know the status of the resolution that IFC is working on that prevented freshmen from living on campus, or living in houses?
Yeah, Lindsay, do you want to talk about it?
So the chapters went through an accreditation process, and then if you are specifically interested in the chapter and like you get a bid, you have to kind of work it out with them. But like as of now, like every man going through IFC recruitment is supposed to live in residential life, with the exception that if their chapter is accredited. So like that's like a case by case basis. So like, and it's one of those things where like almost every chapter did get accredited. So like if you have, let's say you have like a dad who's like very adamant about their son joining their chapter, because this happened to me before, just let them know that that's something that they can freely contact their fraternity or they can contact Greek Life. But as far as it is like the chapter has to be accredited, but every freshman has to live in the residence halls.
This is a great example of just handing off the question to the office that it goes to. You don't need to know this information. There's no reason to actually have it in your head. So if you don't know the answer, that's okay. And you can say, this is where the Greek Life office is. I'll be happy to walk you there after the tour, if you can,
And the Greek Life office is in the student center.
Mm-hmm. Right above the Mizzou store.
Well remembered.
I wish I had candy or something.
All right, let's try to get through this because we still have dining too.
Okay, and then personal experience, always chat that up. Also, big thing, use residence hall, not dorms. When we say residence hall, it implies that we have like an entire all living situation here, and it's all about life, as opposed to a dorm is just one place where you sleep. Does that make sense? It was probably not the best explanation of that, but. So make sure residents.
Yeah, just to supplement that too, just like community is the biggest thing in
Community.
residential, so. Yeah.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, no worries.
I was looking back there hoping you would come and do the same. Anyway, and this is the ResLife's website. Go there, check out their stuff. I was kind of scrolling through and I learned a couple of things that I was like, hey, that would be useful to start saying on my website. Do you guys have any questions about that?
So I had parents ask on both of the tours that were shared about whether the FIGs or the GLCs and the TLCs have specific, like, res life housing, like, set aside for them. So if like you join that, do they have a certain dorm that they have to stay in? Or?
Yes. So if you choose, for example, just going on personal experience. So since I chose to live in 21st century agriculture thing, I lived on the first floor of Schurz. All right. But if I would have wanted to live in the pre-veterinary thing, I would have lived on the second floor of Schurz. All right. So that's yes, they're set aside for it. And so if you really, really, really want to live in North, but you really, really, really want to be a part of the 21st century agriculture thing,
Classic.
you know, things happen.
Classic.
That you won't be able to do that. You would need to live, you would have to take one or the other. Because the whole idea is you're living with those people and you're doing all those things together.
A question that I get a lot is like, what about my roommate? If you're in a FIG, your roommate does have to be in that FIG with you, so like, definitely take that into consideration. I always say to like prioritize what you want and don't want, so that's just something I always think about.
And also remember not all the rooms are in FIG, some are just in general learning communities, and so those are a little less strict. You're not going over classes with everyone on that floor, you just have like a weekly meeting or something like that. So that's another option for students that would rather live in some particular residence hall and not a FIG or something like that.
All right, I'm gonna cut this off because we do have to keep going, so.
Okay, I'm Will. I'm a junior mechanical engineering major. We're going to go through this real quick. Has everyone lived in a residence hall and eaten at a dining hall? Is everyone? Anyone not? Cool. Those are the different swipes plans, 275, 225, 175. They break down to 1.5 swipes a day, 2 swipes a day, 2.5 swipes a day. Obviously, 4 buffet dining halls, 2 a la carte places. Has everyone been to every dining hall? If you haven't, go, because you're going to get meal passes through your tours. Go to everyone, that way you have an experience everywhere. Sandwich bar, salad bar, grill. People love hearing about soft serve. Obviously, they really do. And people also love hearing about dessert. The two things, like to give personal experiences, I always talk about how my mom, she'll come to Columbia for every home football game, and her favorite place to eat in Columbia is the dining halls. And then I always talk about how she makes a huge salad and talks about how I should be eating healthy and working out. And then she makes a soup bowl and fills it full of ice cream and eats like 1.5 gallons of soft serve in one sitting. So talk about that. They always have different entrees in every place. So one place will have fish, another place will have chicken fried steak, another one will have I don't know, gumbo, something. Just made something up there. But you guys all know this, correct? Anyone missing this? If you're off campus, you can buy the $125 plus $215 of Easy Charge. That's obviously pretty self-explanatory. Easy Charge is at the ones in the student center. And then you can also buy a 25 block, which is just 25 meals. You can buy that if you're off campus. You can also, if you have one of the 275, 225, 175, you can add a 25 block if you're getting low at the end of the semester. Also, midway through the semester, if you're on the 275 and you realize you're not going to use them all, you can bump down to the 225. So you can change that around. Yeah, Liz?
Yeah, I think a big thing to say is that coincides with like the time that you have to like change or drop a class. So that's kind of nice too, like, so that they can kind of think that they have time to change that class.
Yep, perfect. Any question? Oh, and then Emporium and what's the place in Dobbs?
Timeout.
What? Timeout. Also, Dobbs will close someday. I don't know when we have the date on that, but they're going to open up a new place, and so.
They're not closing during that, actually.
What? They're
Dobbs will
not.
not close physically during that, it will stay open.
But Dobbs will be closing someday. That's what I'm saying. And so.
But no, like, they will never close, like, it'll just be reopened, but like, there will never be a closing.
They're changing the whole system.
Yeah, I know, like.
Okay, we can talk about this later.
So you're going to have to learn a whole new thing on that. Pretty self-explanatory on that. Any questions? You guys have all eaten.
What should we say if someone has
Great question. I didn't bring that up. We have gluten-free options, we have vegetarian options, we have vegan options. If you want to meet with a dietary counselor from Department of Dining Services, whatever it's called, you can set that up. They're in the second floor of the plaza, and you can email them or go in, and they will set up a time to meet with you and figure out what sorts of dishes will meet, like if you're gluten-free, what sorts of dishes meet your needs, where most of those are, point out the different places, and they'll let you walk you through the different dining halls and teach you how to eat gluten-free at our dining halls. So you can set that up. Anything else? Cool.
Just a quick point on dining. Team leaders can interject with this one, but I always say don't say Mizzou 22. Don't talk about that because some people do have body image issues. And to bring up Mizzou 22 because our food is so great. I understand how you're trying to be positive with our food, but it can also be seen as a negative. So I always say refrain from that. But if team leaders say there's something against that, then cool. Depends on the situation, but I always say refrain from it. So, okay, campus traditions.
They don't talk about those on tour. Yeah, but they're fun. Except for maybe the Speaker Mile speaker circle, especially with the little ones that are fun. Okay, next one. Okay, Tiger Walk and Senior Send-Off. These are really fun to talk about. Tiger Walk was actually established in 1995, so it is a very new tradition. It is put on by the Alumni Association, especially with our kind of new weird tour route. Actually the Alumni Association is right behind me. I like to talk about the fun things that they put on for our students, and that's the big one. So Tiger Walk and Senior Send-Off. Also mentioned the Tiger Stripe ice cream. It is made by the Hospitality Management Food and Beverage Department inside of Eccles Hall. So that is pretty cool. It's the first time you can try it. It's technically vanilla ice cream with a chocolate stripe, but I always say that it tastes better than that. Symbolizes entrance into Mizzou, as I'm sure you all know. Hopefully you guys all did it. Raise your hand if you did it. Good job. Good job, guys. Okay, Senior Send-Off. It was originally called Tiger Prowls, if you ever hear of that reference. It was started the same year as Tiger Walk. There's gathering after in Tiger Plaza. But there used to be beer, but that's not happening anymore, so no more beer. I know, I still say that to her, and I'm really trying to cut it out, but it's very hard for me to admit that it's not going to be there anymore. But there's going to be something new and fun that's happening this year, we just don't know what it is yet. But yeah, so try and especially if you guys are getting trained, don't say it if they decide to.
I think the tentative plan is last bite of Como, so they're gonna have
It hasn't been approved by.
Okay, so we don't know yet. So there's gonna be some new fun stuff, but there's also food, yeah, John.
Just really, I stress, I know it does kind of suck with the beers and stuff, but obviously we're really, well, we used to have beers. And
don't say that. Yeah, don't say that. Yeah, but it's gonna be great still, don't worry. And especially because I think they're gonna try and incorporate Traditions Plaza with it, it's gonna be cool. So yeah, keep on going. Next. Homecoming. Okay, so creators of Homecoming in 1911, we are credited that with Jeopardy, Trivial Pursuit, the NCAA, and this random episode of NCIS. Click on the link because it's fun.
We don't have to.
Okay, never mind. Well, it's watch the link because it's hilarious. They just walk in and they're yeah, Missouri created Homecoming. And so that's this random episode of NCIS that actually mentioned it. Click on the link, watch it. Chester Brewer, who was the athletic director, not the football coach, FYI, at the time, was really was pretty integral in moving the game to Columbia instead of having a neutral territory, because every year before that we'd played Kansas on neutral territory. But he wanted to make sure we had a really good turnout, so he sent out all these letters asking alumni to come home for the big game. Ended up about 9,000 people showed up. It was very anticlimactic. It was a 3-3 tie, but I always say it's okay because we started a homecoming tradition. There were 50,000 fans in the parade last year, which is really neat. Campus decorations, everyone likes to talk about, I always like to talk about that because it really kind of embodies the Columbia community being a part of it. It's really nice to talk about the kids running around Greektown, stuff like that, as well as the Taste of Columbia with the food trucks and fun stuff of that nature. And we have the largest blood drive in the country, which is a really big bragging point, so that's pretty cool. Okay, other traditions. Peace Park. It was originally there before it was called McAllister Park, but in 1970 it took on that name after the Kent State shootings. And it kind of went more with that in 1971 when they boycotted classes to protest the Vietnam War. There was 1,500 students that gathered there. So now it's just officially been called Peaks Park. If you walk over the bridge with your significant other, you're destined to marry. I really couldn't find any fact why that's true, but that's just the tradition, so it's pretty cool. Theodore Francis knows he was the governor at the time of the Akron Hall fire, and he kind of spearheaded the movement. And he secured the money for the rebuild as well as set up the meeting that got that money, so he was just really integral in it. He sent a telegram from the students asking for their commitments actually the day after, so that was the day after the fire. He was like, okay, we're gonna start the movement, which is pretty cool. I actually didn't know that until recently, so that's pretty cool. Referred to his second father, Kazoo. Yeah, Nita, rub the nose, you know? Cool, there's some links. Any questions?
All right. So those are all of the slides from the team leaders. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email them, text them, ask them questions. That's what they're there for. And again, this will be up on shift planning soon after this meeting. Cool. All right. So now we're going to move on. Does anyone have any questions, though, before we move on? Nah? All right, cool. So we're going to go ahead and